First strike. The stellar miner Helios drifted through the Kuiper Belt's outer reaches, its massive collection arrays gathering ice crystals in the void. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's viewport, watching the crystalline fragments dance in the ship's spotlights. 20 years of deep space mining had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, every one of them screamed danger. "Contact bearing 347, called out Sensor Officer Patel, his voice carrying an edge of confusion. I've never seen readings like this before." The object that appeared on their screens defied conventional physics. A massive geometric structure of perfect crystalline angles, it reflected starlight in impossible patterns. As Chen watched, portions of its surface shifted and realigned, like a living kaleidoscope. "No match in any database," Patel continued, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Energy signatures are off the charts, but they're not like anything we've ever encountered." Chen's mind raced through her options. Standard first contact protocols seemed inadequate for something that appeared to break the laws of physics. Before she could issue orders, the ship's communication system crackled to life with a sound that wasn't quite sound, more like the feeling of crystal growing. Translated into audio. "Primitive vessels YLB incorporated into the Dominion. Resistance is inefficient." The effect was immediate. Across the bridge, crew members clutched their heads in agony as psychic energy assaulted their minds. But Chen noticed something odd. The mining engineers, wearing their standard neural dampeners to protect against crystal resonance, seemed unaffected. "All hands, this is the captain." Chen barked into the ship-wide comm. "Everyone with neural dampeners, maintain your stations. Everyone else, get to emergency shelters and put on dampening gear." This is not a drill. The crystalline vessel was approaching now, its surface spawning smaller geometric shapes that broke away and headed toward the Helios. Chen's mind raced through everything she knew about crystal mining, about resonance frequencies, about the ways different materials could be shattered or strengthened. "Engineering," she called out. "What would happen if we reversed the polarity on all our mining arrays at once?" "Captain, that would create a massive resonance wave," Chief Engineer Rodriguez replied, his voice steady behind his dampeners. "It could shatter every crystal in range, including our own collection." "Better than being incorporated," Chen muttered. "All hands, brace for emergency maneuver. Engineering, on my mark, reverse polarity on all arrays and pump maximum power through them." The geometric shapes were almost at their hull now, their perfect surfaces beginning to phase through the metal, as if it were no more substantial than fog. Chen waited until they were fully committed to their attack. Mark. The resulting wave of energy was like nothing Chen had ever seen. The mining arrays, designed to carefully extract ice crystals, instead produced a resonance frequency that rippled through space. The attacking crystals shuddered, their perfect geometry distorting. Cracks appeared, spreading like lightning through their structures. The alien voice returned, but now it carried something new. Confusion, perhaps even fear. "Impossible. Organic beings cannot. Systems failing. Retifrari ATPRO2." The transmission cut off as the smaller crystals shattered completely. The main vessel, its surface now webbed with cracks, began a rapid retreat, leaving behind only glittering dust where its attack force had been. Chen didn't waste time celebrating. "Engineering, damage report. Medical, check all affected personnel. Communications, get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command. They need to know what we found, and more importantly, what we've learned." As her crew rushed to comply, Chen stared at the retreating alien vessel. Humanity had just made first contact with what was clearly an advanced civilization, and their first interaction had been combat. But they'd won, not through superior technology or military might, but through the very human traits of quick thinking and creative problem-solving. She had a feeling this was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was reformulating its strategies, analyzing what had gone wrong. They would be back, and next time they would be prepared for mining equipment turned into weapons. But humanity would be prepared too. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was taking the impossible and turning it into an advantage. "Send everything we have to the science division," she ordered. "Every scan, every reading, every piece of crystal dust we can collect. If these things have more weaknesses, we're going to find them." The Helios's collection arrays, now filled with the remains of their attackers instead of ice, glittered in the starlight. Humanity's first encounter with the Dominion had lasted less than 15 minutes, but it had taught them something crucial. Even the most advanced enemies could be defeated if you were willing to think differently enough. The game was on, and humanity had just changed all the rules. Continue with additional parts. Each part will maintain this level of detail and tension, while exploring different aspects of humanity's unique approach to defeating the seemingly unbeatable enemy. The alliance forged. Admiral Maya Patel stood before the Galactic Council, her weathered uniform bearing the scars of 3 encounters with Dominion forces. The chamber around her was a marvel of alien architecture, but she wasn't here to admire the view. Representatives from 17 spacefaring species filled the tiered seats, each watching her with varying degrees of skepticism and fear. "In the past 6 months," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber, "humanity has survived 4 major Dominion incursions. Not just survived, we've driven them back, inflicting significant casualties. We're here to propose an alliance, but first, I want you to watch something." The holographic display activated, showing footage from the Battle of Titan. Dominion crystal ships descended on the mining colony, their perfect geometric forms casting prismatic shadows across the icy surface. But instead of finding helpless prey, they encountered organized chaos. Mining vessels performed erratic maneuvers that made no tactical sense until the moment they did. Sonic resonators hidden in ice deposits activated in seemingly random patterns, creating a web of destructive frequencies. "The Dominion's greatest strength is their perfect order," Patel continued. "Every strategy calculated, every move predicted. But their greatest weakness is exactly the same thing. They can't comprehend chaos. They don't understand improvisation. And that's where humanity excels." The Mursk ambassador, their feline features twisted in doubt, spoke first. "Our species fought the Dominion for 3 years. We lost 40 colonies before accepting their terms. How can you claim to do better?" "Because we're not fighting them the way you did," Patel replied. "You tried to match their precision, their organization. But look at this." She gestured to another recording, this one showing a human fleet executing what appeared to be a completely disorganized retreat. This wasn't a defeat. This was a trap. The Dominion's predictive algorithms couldn't process our apparent incompetence. They didn't realize we were leading them into a field of quantum mines disguised as space debris. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Zurith Collective's representative, a being of pure energy, pulsed with interest. "Your species intentionally appears inefficient to exploit their expectations." "Exactly. The Dominion expects military precision, organized resistance. Instead, we give them mining ships repurposed as weapons platforms, cargo haulers carrying sonic disruptors, civilian vessels that scatter sensor-jamming crystals in their wake. We fight dirty, we fight chaotic, and most importantly, we fight together." She played one final recording, the defense of New Sydney, where a Dominion dreadnought was destroyed by what appeared to be a malfunctioning terraforming platform. This victory wasn't just human ingenuity. We used crystalline focusing technology we learned from the Mursk, combined with energy manipulation techniques from the Zurith. Imagine what we could accomplish if we all worked together. The Ketel ambassador, their chrysalis glowing with skepticism, spoke next. "The Dominion's psychic network allows them to coordinate across vast distances. Any organized resistance would be detected and crushed." Patel smiled. "That's why we're not proposing an organized resistance. We're proposing organized chaos. Small cells, independent operations, each using different tactics. No central command for them to target. No predictable patterns to analyze. Just thousands of separate pieces working together in ways their perfect crystalline minds can't comprehend. She could see the idea taking hold. Species that had never cooperated were exchanging thoughtful looks. The Maersk ambassador's tail twitched with growing excitement. "We've proven they can be hurt." Patel pressed her advantage. "We've proven they can be confused. Now we're offering you the chance to turn their perfect order against them. Humanity will share everything we've learned about fighting the Dominion, and in return, we want your knowledge, your technology, your unique perspectives. Together, we can be more unpredictable than any of us could be alone." The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the Zorth representative pulsed forward. "The collective will join your alliance. Our energy manipulation technology is yours to use." One by one, other representatives stepped forward. The Maersk offered their crystal-focusing technology. The Catal promised their phase-shifting capabilities. Even species that had been bitter enemies found themselves united by the opportunity to strike back at their common oppressor. As Paddle watched the alliances form, she couldn't help but smile. The Dominion had spent millennia perfecting their strategies against opponents who fought conventionally. They weren't ready for an alliance based on controlled chaos, for a resistance that turned their own perfectionism into a weakness. "Let the record show," she announced, "that today marks the formation of the Asymmetric Defense Coalition. Our first act will be to establish training centers where we can share our various combat techniques and technologies. The Dominion expects us to either submit or die. Instead, we're going to teach them why unpredictable doesn't mean ineffective." The chamber, for the first time in its long history, erupted in cheers. Species that had once feared to even speak against the Dominion were now openly planning its downfall. Humanity had done more than just survive. They had given the galaxy hope. And hope, Paddle knew, was the most chaotic force of all. Operation Chaos. Commander Jack Santos watched the holographic display from the bridge of the retrofitted cargo ship Trickster, trying not to laugh at the absurdity of their battle fleet. Converted mining vessels bristled with jury-rigged weapons. Passenger liners now carried experimental phase-shift generators. Even his own ship, once a simple bulk hauler, had been transformed into something the Dominion's tactical computers would find impossible to categorize. "Status report on the Kittle phase generators," he asked, watching the fleet's seemingly random formation shifts. His XO, a Maersk named Rural, checked the readings. "Operating at 87% efficiency. The crystal matrices are holding stable, though I still think this plan is insane." "That's exactly why it's going to work," Santos grinned. "Battle Group Chaos. Sound off." The comm channels lit up as the most unlikely fleet in galactic history reported ready. 17 species, dozens of different technologies, all cobbled together in ways their original designers never imagined. The Dominion was about to learn why letting humans play with alien tech was a terrible mistake. Their target was New Damascus, a human colony that had fallen to the Dominion 3 months ago. Intelligence suggested they were using it as a forward base, converting the population into crystal-infused drone workers. The mission hit them so hard and so chaotically that their perfect crystalline minds would shatter trying to make sense of it. "Remember," Santos broadcast to the fleet, "stick to your assigned chaos patterns. The Dominion expects logic. We're going to give them a nightmare." The first sign that something was wrong came from the Dominion's orbital defenses. The crystalline platforms, normally arranged in mathematically perfect formations, began shifting erratically, trying to track multiple conflicting sensor readings. "Phase 1 complete," Rural reported, whiskers twitching in amusement. "The Keetle tech is making our ships exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Their targeting systems are having fits." Santos nodded. "Begin Phase 2. Release the fog." Converted atmosphere processors, originally designed for terraforming, began pumping out clouds of Zorth energy beings. The Dominion sensors, already confused by the phase-shifting fleet, now had to contend with thousands of apparently living energy signatures moving in completely random patterns. The Dominion response was predictable, precisely because it had to be. Their crystalline ships moved to establish a defensive grid, each taking optimal firing positions based on their tactical algorithms. It would have been the perfect defense against a conventional attack. This was not a conventional attack. Phase 3. Santos ordered. Show them why you never let humans play with mining equipment. Across the fleet, modified mining beams activated, but instead of extracting resources, they were channeling focused packets of Mersk crystal energy, Zorth plasma, and human sonic resonance. The combination created weapons that shouldn't have worked, operating on principles that violated half a dozen laws of physics. The Dominion's perfect formation became their undoing. As the first shots hit, the crystalline ships began to vibrate. The energy patterns, impossible to predict or counter, cascaded through their linked network. Ships that should have been impervious to conventional weapons began to crack. "They're trying to adapt," Rurol reported, excitement creeping into their usually cool voice. "Their ships are attempting to change their crystalline frequency to resist our attacks." "Perfect," Santos grinned. "Spring the trap." Hidden among the debris of previous battles, automated drones activated. Each was loaded with a different resonance frequency, creating a web of destructive sound waves. As the Dominion ships changed their frequency to resist one attack, they'd made themselves vulnerable to others. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, the space around New Damascus was filled with drifting crystal shards, the remains of what had once been an invincible defense fleet. "Ground teams reporting in," Rurol announced. "The Dominion's control over the colonists is breaking down. Their neural network can't maintain coherence under this level of, what did you call it?" "Weaponized chaos," Santos replied, watching as rescue ships moved in to evacuate the freed colonists. The Dominion built their entire civilization on perfect order and predictability. They've never faced an enemy that turns disorder into strength. The victory at New Damascus would become a template for future operations. The Dominion, for the first time in their long history, faced an enemy they couldn't predict or understand. Every battle followed different patterns, used different combinations of technologies. Their perfect tactical computers tried to find logic in the chaos and failed. As Santos watched his unlikely fleet secure the system, he couldn't help but think about how far they'd come. Humanity had entered the galactic stage as newcomers, seemingly outmatched by the Dominion's superior technology. But they'd brought something the galaxy desperately needed: the ability to think outside every box, to break every rule, and to turn apparent weakness into unprecedented strength. "Send word to Admiral Patel," he ordered. "Tell her Operation Chaos was a complete success, and tell her we've got some new ideas for the next round. The crew's been brainstorming. And wait until she hears what happens when you combine Zorth energy beings with retrofitted coffee makers." Rural's whiskers twitched. "You're joking about the coffee makers, right?" Santos just smiled. The best part about chaos was that sometimes, not even he knew what was a joke and what was the next breakthrough. And that was exactly why they were winning. The hidden advantage. Dr. Elena Martinez stood in her laboratory aboard the research station Prometheus, surrounded by holographic displays of human brain scans. Each one told a different story. Unique neural pathways, distinct patterns of thought, minds that processed the world in their own particular ways. But together, they told a story that could change the course of the war. "You're telling me," Admiral Patel said from the video feed, "that our greatest weapon against the Dominion has been inside our heads all along." "Exactly," Martins replied, manipulating the displays to show comparative scans. "The Dominion's psychic network operates on principles of perfect uniformity. Every crystalline mind linked in exactly the same way, thinking in precisely the same patterns. It's incredibly powerful, but it's also incredibly rigid." She pulled up new data, recordings from successful resistance operations. "Look at these readings from the New Damascus liberation. The Dominion's attacks were most effective against species with highly standardized neural patterns. But humans? Our brains are like snowflakes. No two exactly alike. The display shifted to show a Dominion attempt to establish psychic control over a human population. Their standardized attack patterns struggled to adapt to the sheer variety of human neural architecture. Some minds proved completely immune, others partially resistant, each requiring the Dominion to expend more energy trying to maintain control. It's not just our natural variation, Martinez continued. It's how we think. The Dominion's perfect crystalline logic can't handle human neurodiversity. Every different way of processing information, every unique perspective, becomes a potential weakness in their control. Patel leaned forward, her holographic form showing intense interest. How can we weaponize this? Martinez smiled. We already have a prototype. We're calling it the Neural Chaos Engine. It takes the patterns from hundreds of different human minds, different neurotypes, different thought processes, and broadcasts them directly into the Dominion's psychic network. She activated a small device on her lab bench. The crystalline shard in the containment field, a piece of captured Dominion tech, began to vibrate erratically. Their network tries to process all these different patterns simultaneously. It's like trying to solve 1,000 different puzzles at once, each with different rules. And their perfect crystalline minds can't handle the cognitive dissonance. Patel finished, understanding dawning. How soon can we deploy this? That's the best part, Martine said, bringing up a new set of schematics. We've been working with the Zurith to modify their energy transmission technology. We can turn entire ships into neural chaos broadcasters. But here's where it gets really interesting. We found that certain human neurological conditions actually enhance the effect. The display showed brain scans from volunteer crew members. People with ADHD, autism, synesthesia. Their unique neural patterns create chaos in the Dominion's network that their crystalline logic simply cannot process. What they once might have seen as disabilities become superpowers against an enemy that can only think in straight lines. Patel's hologram paced the lab. How many ships can we convert? Better question, Martinez grinned. How many different ways can human minds think? Because that's our real advantage. Every variation, every unique perspective, becomes another weapon. The Dominion built their empire on enforcing perfect order. We're going to show them the power of embracing difference. The Admiral nodded. Begin mass production immediately. And Dr. Martinez, find me volunteers. I want crews that think differently, crews that can show the Dominion why trying to enforce uniformity on humanity was their biggest mistake. As Patel's hologram faded, Martinez turned back to her displays. Each brain scan represented not just a person, but a potential key to victory. The Dominion had spent millennia perfecting their psychic network, making it more uniform, more controlled. They never imagined they'd face a species that turned neurological diversity into a battlefield advantage. Begin broadcast test sequence, she ordered her team. The Neural Chaos Engine hummed to life, channeling the patterns of 100 different minds. In its containment field, the Dominion crystal began to fracture, unable to process the kaleidoscope of human thought. Martinez made a note in her log. Phase 1 testing successful. Dominion crystalline architecture shows critical vulnerability to human neural diversity. Recommend immediate integration with fleet operations. Note: suggest new classification for human neurological variations. No longer differences, now tactical advantages. The crystalline shard finally shattered, unable to maintain its perfect structure under the assault of human cognitive variety. Martinez smiled. The Dominion was about to learn that there was strength in difference, power in diversity, and that trying to impose perfect order on the beautiful chaos of human consciousness was a battle they could never win. Breaking the unbreakable. The combined fleet of the Asymmetric Defense Coalition hung in the void near the Orion Nebula, an impossible armada of ships that had no right to work together. Admiral Maya Patel stood on the bridge of the flagship Pandora, watching the tactical display as the largest Dominion fleet ever recorded approached their position. All ships reporting ready. Commander Santos reported from his position coordinating the Chaos squadrons. Neural Chaos engines are spooled up and crews are, well, as organized as we ever get. Dr. Martinez's voice came through from the science vessel Prometheus. Neural pattern diversity is at maximum. We got everything from quantum physicists to jazz musicians running the broadcast patterns. Patel nodded, watching as the Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their ships were different now, reinforced crystalline structures designed to resist the resonance attacks that had worked before. The Dominion had adapted, just as expected. But adaptation meant prediction, and prediction was exactly what humanity had learned to use against them. Send the signal, Patel ordered. Begin Operation Pandora. The battle opened unlike any in galactic history. The Coalition fleet broke apart in seemingly random directions, each ship following patterns designed by game theorists, abstract artists, and children playing with starship models. The Dominion's tactical computers tried to analyze the movement and failed, unable to find logic in movements based on everything from jazz improvisation to butterfly migration patterns. The Dominion counterattacked with crystalline precision, their weapons cutting through space in mathematically perfect arcs. But their targets weren't there. Ships phase shifting between quantum states, thanks to Kittle technology, their positions as uncertain as Schrödinger's cat. Neural Chaos broadcast at full power, Martins reported. Their network is trying to compensate, but they can't handle the cognitive load. Every human mind broadcasting is thinking about a different, impossible thing. The effect was visible even through the tactical displays. Dominion ships began to move erratically as their crystalline crews struggled to process the flood of human neural patterns. Each unique way of thinking became a weapon, forcing their perfect minds to try to comprehend everything from abstract expressionism to non-Euclidean geometry. Phase 2, Patel ordered. Release the impossibilities. This was humanity's greatest contribution to the war effort. Weapons that shouldn't work, couldn't work, but did anyway. Mining beams modified with Zurith energy matrices cut through space in spiral patterns, their trajectories based on Mobius strips. Merce crystal focusing arrays channeled power through human-designed circuits that violated every known law of physics. The Dominion fleet's perfect formation began to break down. Their attempts to adapt to one impossible attack left them vulnerable to 3 others. Their crystalline processors, trying to find patterns in the chaos, began to overload. They're attempting to retreat, Santos reported, grinning. Their flagship is transmitting in the clear. They're saying this defies all tactical logic. Show them what else we can defy, Patel commanded. All ships, execute protocol imagination. This was the masterstroke, the culmination of everything humanity had learned about fighting the unbeatable enemy. Every ship in the Coalition fleet began broadcasting a different impossible thing directly into the Dominion's neural network. Artists imagined colors that couldn't exist. Musicians composed songs in impossible time signatures. Mathematicians calculated equations that broke reality. The Dominion's rigid, crystalline minds couldn't handle the cognitive dissonance. Their perfect network, designed to enforce uniformity, was drowning in human creativity. Ships began to shatter, their crews unable to maintain coherence under the assault of pure human imagination unleashed. Their flagship is sending a new transmission, Santos announced, almost laughing. They're asking how to surrender to chaos. Patel allowed herself a small smile. Tell them that chaos doesn't accept surrender, but humanity does. The battle that followed would be recorded in history as the moment the unbeatable enemy learned they could be beaten. The Dominion, faced with the impossible choice between perfect order and survival, chose to survive. Their empire, built on crystalline uniformity, shattered under the weight of human diversity and creativity. In the aftermath, as coalition ships began rescue operations for the Dominion crews who chose to accept help, Patel found herself staring at the debris field that had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. You know what the real irony is, she mused to her bridge crew. They called us primitive because we weren't all the same, because we couldn't achieve their level of perfect uniformity. They never understood that our greatest strength was in our differences. The galaxy would never be the same. The species that had once lived in fear of the Dominion's perfect order had learned a new way of existing, one that embraced chaos, celebrated diversity, and turned imagination into power. And at the heart of it all was humanity, the species that looked at the impossible and asked, why not? As the Coalition fleet regrouped, preparing to help former Dominion worlds transition to freedom, Paddle sent one final message to Earth: Operation Pandora complete. The box is opened. And hope wasn't the only thing we set free. In the end, the galaxy's deadliest species had fallen not to superior technology or greater numbers, but to the beautiful chaos of human consciousness unleashed. The perfect had been broken by the wonderfully imperfect, and the universe was better for it.